This is a team that obviously has already fired its head coach and now its defensive coordinator coming into this week. You've got everything that's been going on. You know, they had a good game against this Lions team, but again, a late lead that goes away that they give up. And if you
Giants, baby.
And if you ask any Giants fan if they're going to win a football game in the fourth quarter, their answer, no matter how many points they're up, is going to be no, they are not going to win the game. They have zero confidence that they can go and finish a fourth quarter, which is just a sad state of affairs. So my question to you is, where do the Giants go from here, Jamie?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
Yep.
I'll start by saying they made the right move to fire Shane Bowen. I know there's been this conversation about it for a while. There have been some murmurs inside that locker room about questioning the play call and the personnel situations.
Yeah.
Talk about some of Jahmyr Gibbs' biggest runs in that game. They came with Dexter Lawrence off the field. And there's been some hand-wringing about why Lawrence is coming off the field so often and how many big runs that defense has given up when that's happened. They've had some pieces in the secondary they probably liked better on paper than that they have performed. But I think overall, in this case, all season long, this has been the hallmark of this team. And the defense was supposed to be a strength. If you go back to August, you were thinking about, okay, well, they're at Russell Wilson at quarterback, and they got a rookie plus a second-year guy at running back, and we're not sure about the right side of the offensive line, but they got Carter and Thibodeau and Burns and Lawrence, and they got all these pieces out there, and injuries and just lack of execution, both from a schematic standpoint and from an on-field standpoint, has really kind of led them to this. And you needed the wholesale change. The question is going to be whether the wholesale change also includes a general manager, which there seems to be a lot of indecision about that right now. But at the end of the day, this made sense. You continue to lose games late. You continue to have problems defensively. You continue to blow leads, big leads sometimes in games. Hello, Denver. And I think it was time, if you want to give Mike Kafka a real shot to audition for this role, and I do think he's got a shot. I don't think he's going to get it, but I think he has a shot to be the full-time head coach. You have to let him kind of change things around on that staff and see what they can do on defense, because you have to be impressed about what they've done so far on offense. The Kafka-Jameis Winston combination has been really, really exciting. And yes, Jameis has got his couple mind-numbing picks that are just obligatory whenever he starts.
Jameis.
But he's been playing pretty good football overall. And, that was a decision that Brian Daboll did not want to make. Right? He named Russell Wilson his starter, was trying to get to Jackson Dart as quickly as possible, and Jameis Winston was really never in the equation for him. So where they go from here, you're just in an evaluation period at this point. And quite frankly, you need to be as safe as possible with Jackson Dart, because he is going to be reckless himself. You don't have a lot of weapons right now. You don't have a lot of healthy bodies on either side of the ball from starting standpoints. You're down your wide receiver one. You're down your running back one. You're down your quarterback one. You've been down your starting right tackle at times. You're down most of your linebacking core. I mean, you've had a lot of injuries this year for a team that wasn't quite good enough anyway yet in their rebuild to afford all of these injuries. So I guess the overall takeaway here and where they go from here is just continue to evaluate what pieces on defense are going to be long-term options for you, and also evaluate whether or not Mike Kafka is going to be a legitimate option for you when you get to the offseason and you start talking to other guys like Mike McCarthy, like a Cliff Kingsbury and some of these others. John Mara seems to be open to having a wide range of candidates interview, and they're not locked in on just an offensive guy right now. No. So, there's guys like Spagnuolo, who obviously has a long history with the Giants. Brian Flores. If you think back to the Brian Flores thing, is the whole thing started because Brian Daboll got the job and not him, and Bill Belichick texted the wrong Brian. That's how that whole lawsuit started, if you remember.
That.
But Brian Flores interviewed for that job. So there are a lot of pieces out there that I think the Giants are not really sure which direction they're going to go quite yet. And so this is really just an evaluation period now for the defensive side of the ball, and what key pieces are going to stay long-term. They have decisions to make with Kayvon Thibodeau. He's under contract next year, but he's a guy that I could see easily getting moved in the offseason. They've got a couple linebackers that are hurt that are due for new contracts. They got issues in the secondary they really need to fix. So they just got to use this time to evaluate it. And the players were starting to think that Shane Bowen wasn't putting them in a good position to succeed. So now you're going to try somebody else here for the final month and a half of the year and see what happens and see if maybe you can find some other gems that maybe you weren't getting the most out of for the most part in this season.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for the Giants. I think the reality is I would like them to not rush to get Jackson Dart back. I'd like him to make sure that he's okay. And I know that it's been fun to watch Jackson Dart, and the New York Giants fans have had a really good time watching him. But the way that Jameis is playing gives you plenty of opportunity to win football games moving forward. And I don't think you're going to evaluate a whole lot when you see what Jackson Dart can do the rest of the year, because considering all the injuries that they've had. So my secondary question coming out of this, Jamie, is Jameis Winston doing enough to start somewhere else next year? Because we know who Jameis is, right? He is an exciting up and down roller coaster, and that's exactly what you're going to get. But the flip side of that is there's been some pretty bad quarterback play across the NFL this year. And when you consider what the upside is of Jameis, do you think there's an opportunity for him to go somewhere else and start next season?
I do. I think he's a guy that is always kind of talked about nowadays since his Tampa Bay run as like the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's always somebody that gets talked about in the offseason. Oh, we'd like him to be our QB2 or again, remember when the Giants signed him, he was the QB2. It was Russ and Jameis, and then they didn't know what they were going to get with Jackson Dart. Those two were the backup plan for them not getting Matthew Stafford. So I think the timeline there, you have to kind of understand that. But yeah, I mean, I look around the league at some of the guys that might, or some of the opportunities that might be available, and the fact that it's not going to be a very strong free agent class of quarterbacks. And so I do think that a guy like Jameis Winston with that upside could find a home. You think about what happens in Arizona if Kyler Murray gets traded, what happens with the New York Jets, what happens with some of these other teams. And you know, heck, what happens at the start of the season for the Falcons?
Yep.
You know, I think the Michael Penix stuff is got to be really concerning for them in that franchise at this point. And look, I don't think anybody's is taking Jameis Winston and looking at a 2, 3, 4 year window for him. They're going to look at it the 1 year window of 2026. So I do think he's going to get an opportunity to at least compete for Pittsburgh. Yeah. You know what I mean? Maybe it's him and Mason Rudolph are fighting it out. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is coming back next season. And quite frankly, very quietly, Aaron Rodgers is having a bad season.
Yes.
Nobody talks about it. He's having a bad season.
Yeah, feed me Jameis to the Steelers. Oh, my God.
If you think about a scenario where you've got DK Metcalf, maybe a first-round wide receiver, and then Jameis Winston at quarterback, the Steelers will at least be more fun. That'll be a more exciting team. And